Sir Ken Robinson, in your latest book, The Element, you talk about our talents. Is the school killing them? In which way?
Well, schools sometimes ignore them, I would say. Part of the argument of the book is that we all have very different talents, and they show themselves in all sorts of different areas. You know, for some people it may be science or mathematics, for other people it may be dance or music. I always think of human talents like the Earth's natural resources. You know, they may be there, but you may never discover them. They may be buried. You may have to work hard to find them. And schools tend to focus on a very narrow idea of ability, you know, particularly a certain sort of academic work. So it's why students at school spend most of their time writing and sitting down. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but they're not the whole of human talent. And so schools often ignore young people's real talents, and they therefore may never discover them. You know, I think that we do need a revolution in education. So the change is beginning to happen, and I think it'll get faster.
Are the teachers helping on that or not?
Well, some are, and some aren't. It's a very complicated system, and you have to look at, you know, there are trends, there are patterns in different countries around the world. You know, but you're right, there are a lot of people in education who've been in this for a very long time, and they don't necessarily see the need for change and don't necessarily feel very well equipped to bring the change about, even if they were to understand it. So I think there's a big generational shift that will happen. I think as this generation of young people moves through the system, you may well find that the whole context will have changed, and they'll have, you know, a different set of aptitudes and energies to bring to this shift. Creativity is putting your imagination to work. And sometimes it's an individual effort, and sometimes it involves collaboration. It almost always involves being influenced by other people's ideas, one way or another. Even people who work alone are usually conscious of other people who worked in the same field. So there's a kind of dialogue in a lot of creative processes, whether it's actually a dialogue like this, or it's a kind of internal conversation with what you've already seen and experienced. I think of innovation as putting good ideas into practice. I think that there's a huge area for innovation, how we organise schools internally. I mean, for example, most schools are still organised by subjects. They divide the day up into small bits, you know, to 40 or 50 minutes, and they ring a bell every 50 minutes. You know, I was saying this recently, if you were running a business like that, you'd be bankrupt in a week. You know, if you had 2,000 employees and every 40 minutes they had to stop what they were doing and go to a different room and do something else for 40 minutes with a different group of people, and then repeat that 6 times a day, I mean, they'd just be demoralised. You'd never get anything done. But we do it in schools all the time. So I think if you organise schools or learning communities around the nature of the tasks that you're asking people to do, you'd see a very different kind of dynamic. I mean, sometimes you want to spend all day working on a project, and sometimes you just need 15 minutes to do something in particular. At the moment, it's all organised around, you know, the schedule, and we try to fit everything else into it. A great teacher is like an alchemist. You know, they can create wonderful things from what may seem very unpromising material. But I believe all kids have great promise. It's the job of education to help them fulfill it.
Yeah. But the fact is that a lot of students are leaving, there are a lot of dropouts, the unschooling or homeschooling systems are growing all over. So what does it mean? Is the system sick?
Well, you know, if you were running a business, as I say, and you lost 30% of your customers every year, you might think, is it me? You know, am I doing something wrong? You know, if it's a restaurant, you think, is it the food? You wouldn't think these stupid customers. You know, you try and find out what it was that was turning people away. They don't see that in the way that my generation did, that they don't believe in the basic story that if you work hard and go to college, you'll get a job forever. And there's 1,000 distractions, and also often peer pressure, and the whole thing now is being overlaid with this dead culture of standardization. It's a very high pressure life. I mean, it's not just the kids who leave we need to think about, it's the ones who stay in, who are suffering from depression, disengagement, you know, who are being given drugs to get them through the program. I mean, there's something very wrong in a system like that if the only way you can keep people there is to keep them drugged. Tests and drugs and rock and roll, isn't it? It's, well, again, with all these things, you know, you have to nuance the argument a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying that tests are bad. I've never said that. I mean, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be made to work hard. I think that's really important. I mean, the problem is where testing becomes the purpose of it all. I mean, for example, you know, the PISA results have just come out from the OECD, and you know, they have interesting data there that's worth looking at. But to see education ministers around the world, you know, taking antidepressants because, you know, they're too far down the list, and others bragging about how they are. I mean, it's become, the risk is that PISA's become like the Eurovision Song Contest of education, you know, and we all know what the quality of music's like at the Eurovision Song Contest. I mean, it's not really, you know, the top of our achievement every year. And what I'm not critical of there being data like this, just that people obsess about it, and it becomes the purpose of the exercise.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thanks for the questions, they're great. You're going to cut this down to 3 minutes.